Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity. I am Jan Jeremias, and I am here with my canine companion, my buddy, really the love of my life, Tonka. So a little bit about me. I'm a trained scientist who began exploring holistic and alternative healing about 18 years ago. I began my journey with the use of essential oils and began exploring modalities such as Reiki, massage, and other holistic energy healing modalities for pets and people too. I am the co-author of the top-selling essential oil book for pets called Spoil Your Pet, a practical guide to using essential oils in dogs and cats. And today I'm really excited to welcome Donna Maltz. And Donna gets on with us from Hawaii. So I'm so happy she's here and we could make the time change work. And so a little bit about Donna. She has this laundry list of like, I want to say not even credentials, but experience and wisdom to share. So let me begin and I'll share with you a little bit about her. She's a published author, a TEDx speaker, and talk show host. She's been actively writing and mentoring others to gain health, lose toxins, and build a life they can be proud of by living like the future matters, which hopefully if you're listening to this, you know it does. Her motto is why retire when you can inspire. And I love that because I feel like that's going to be me. I don't know that I'll ever stop working. Part of me says when you work with animals, you work your whole life, because why stop? And she lives, like I said, in Hawaii. She has a vast history of in business and successful businesses, and especially in the eco businesses, like the eco entrepreneurial space. And so welcome, Donna.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and being here with you. And I love that you said the eco space. I am a soil to soul eco entrepreneur, and pets and health have been part of my longevity secret and why retire when I can inspire. I have 16 paws at home with me right now, and all of those four-legged friends keep me incredibly healthy. 3 60-pound dogs and 1 12-pound cat named Buddha. And yeah, I'm really, really so happy to talk with you on this topic of health and pets and longevity, because anybody who's listening to this who has I don't even the word pet, they're like dog backwards is God, right?
Right.
So who has privileged enough to have, for me especially, I'm a canine person. Felines, cats drool, dogs rule in my world, but that's always debatable depending on what you like. But I think that's all part of being a responsible pet owner, not owner because we don't own our pets, but a keeper, a steward of our four-legged friends. But it is a secret to longevity for sure. When you have something that you can love and care for, and something that loves and cares for us so much, it's hugely important. And one thing else I wanted to mention, what you said about my bio and my businesses and where I live and how I live has always been directed by my four-legged friends. Goldfish you can take anywhere, but when you have a cat or a dog or a horse or lambs or goats or whatever, it's a big responsibility, and at the same time a privilege. And so it always got me to live on very rural places. I always had careers that approved, because that's why I'm an entrepreneur. I didn't have to time into anybody's clock, but being an eco entrepreneur and being geared towards all my businesses being more geared towards outside or a place that could facilitate my animals. I had a restaurant for 37 years, and there was always a dog at the doorstep waiting for the customers to come in. And because it was my restaurant, right?
Right.
So being an entrepreneur has huge benefits, especially if you have children or our pets or my children, so I could make my own rules and live where they would be happy and most comfortable. And therefore, I live in a beautiful rural place in Hawaii. And if you guys could all see it, I would give you a tour and show you the beautiful flowers that are happening right now.
Oh, sounds absolutely lovely. I think as you talk about, the fact that you kind of became an entrepreneur to kind of be able to live that kind of lifestyle, surrounded by animals, surrounded by nature. And I think that if anything we learned over the past few years is that people loved working at home because they got to work around their pets. How many people I get on for meetings and their pets are all over them. Like the meeting that we were on together last night, I mean, Tonka jumped up on the sofa and he was giving me kisses the whole time, and how can you not smile, and how can it not break the tension a little bit when my last cat was on every Zoom meeting I think I ever had. It was like he was there, so I think it's so endearing to sit there and think that they're so much a part of our lives, and they can teach us so much if we are open to listening or to actually looking at it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that they are my greatest teacher. And in my book, Living Like the Future Matters, my first book that I wrote, I was sharing with you earlier that I have more pictures of them than my brothers. I have a picture of them in almost every chapter, because they were part of sculpting who I am as a human. And so they are such a huge part of my life. And I give so much gratitude to them. They will always be remembered because they are I write about them. And I look at the experiences that I've had with each of them, and it's just something I know that you're going to resonate with, because once our animals hit 10, we have to, when I was 10, I was just a kid, right? When I was 20, I was just a little bit bigger kid, 30 kid. But and these dogs, we're looking at their mortality, and the grief that I experienced it and able to express in my writing. But I learned how to animalize. I learned how to appreciate my own scent of my own body, to smell out a rat when there was a bad situation. My dogs would respond to a person if they didn't like them, and then I could almost 100% agree with their findings, or they would lick and lap somebody up. So they helped me understand how to read people. So they not only were they my companions, not only did they help define where I lived, maybe a rural place, so most of my dogs were large, could run free. None of my dogs were collars. All three of them are collarless. They're all on verbal leash. They're not treated like an animal. They're treated like my companion. And they continue to teach me so much about life, animalizing, and death. Those are the three main things, because I don't know if anybody listening to this can relate or feel like I'm very much a believer of thereafter life. My cat's name is Buddha. Sid Arthur turns into Buddha. My animals, same thing, like that name, that justifiable to the 9 lives of a cat, or whatever you want to say. But my dogs have absorbed the personalities, not just of people that I've loved and my other pets that have been so ingrained in my heart that I only was able to have the privilege to care for maybe 10 or 15 years. When the lesson is to enjoy the moment, like be present like they are. And something that I have learned to do, which I think you're going to find really interesting, because one of my dogs, he is my avatar. I mean, he's just like, right, we're like stuck at the hips in a genuinely beautiful way. But one of the things that I do probably about once a month, like I'll be taking an outdoor shower and he'll be like stretched out. I wish you guys could see me, just like, you know how that stretch is, just wide open and just so open to the world, and feeling, you, most of us would be so vulnerable, and he's just like spread out, just handsome, beautiful. And I realized, oh my God, he's 10, he's 70, or whatever you want to say in dog years. And I will allow myself to like just feel what it feels like to hold on to that memory. Like I cry right now when I'm talking to you,
Uh-huh.
to like pre-grieve a little, because, and to realize that part of what I'm doing is making it easier, right? That's, I think, very Native American and very cultural. Like they're much more instinctual and how they think about their ancestors and the life beyond the physical in the great spirit. And so I allow myself to, and I'm always asking God or the higher being or whatever, why did these a-hole people get to live into their 70s and 80s and 90s, and these beautiful four-legged creatures who are here and just giving and loving and protecting and teaching us about surrendering and peace and love and being compassionate and unconditional love, only get to live 15 years or 18 years. And it's just, and then that's when I realized there, thank goodness I believe in the thereafter. Thank
Right.
God I animalize and that I have this belief system. Otherwise, like, I'd never have another pet again or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I think that my dog's going to be no, he's either 11, I think he is.
Mhm.
And every now and then I look at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, my last dog thankfully lived to 19, and
Mhm.
that was really amazing. But a lot of dogs don't. And so all of a sudden I'm like, wow. And then I'm also like, where did the time go? Like, where did the
Yeah.
time go? I feel like I just got him. And I'm still working with him. Like that, the training and everything is always constant to me. Like there's always that, because he'll take advantage, it's like he'll push you. But I'm like, no, 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 the rules, guy. But um one of the things I do think is so beautiful, and I had this conversation with someone, and she's going to come on, I think, in November, but she was talking about, she just got her daughter her first pet. And we were talking about, I mean, she is so cute. She sits there, like she used her allowance money and she's like so into it. And I just love this idea of what it teaches children. Like I had pets growing up, and mainly cats. We had a dog when I was very young, but mainly cats. And there is something, I mean, I think there's something about teaching responsibility and love, and what that is, that unconditional love and that bond, which I know that I had with all my pets. And I don't think there's anything like that. And I think that carries through to us as we age.
Yeah, to care for something that really has been domesticated, because actually dogs are, glorified wolves or
Right.
domesticated wolves, but they still have that wolf-like instinct, even little chihuahuas, maybe more so than shepherds sometimes. These chihuahuas here in
Oh
Hawaii,
my.
they're like, they got a Napoleon complex.
Yeah, I know. I know they're very loud, and they have this really piercing bark.
Yeah, and this appearance, their personality radiates beyond their size by magnitude by 1,000, and they intimidate my 60-pounders. But yeah, I think what you hit on there is a really important discussion to for everybody to realize that children, you know, the first sign of abuse in a family is when people are abusing their animals, and then that there's going to be more than likely child abuse. And that's a statistic, and I've seen it firsthand happen. And children deserved better than that, right? And animals are such a way I'm trying to bring this back so everybody gets my point here, but I didn't want to forget that point because that is a very important domestic violence thing that needs to be addressed for mental health, that animals take a lot of abuse, and children who are in a family where there's abusive pets are going to feel it. And having a child, children to be able to have the camaraderie in a family where maybe it isn't as functional, and to be able to have an animal, a being that they can get love from and show love is insurmountable. And that's again where these unconditional love, these animals, they sense, they know, they see, and there are the most heartwarming stories of animals getting children out of bad situations. And so, people who underestimate the children and animals, I kind of they're almost like the same, like I treat my dogs like they are my children. And my training is real at the beginning, and now they're trained. They train me, like if you do, to go on a walk, or they swim in the ocean with me almost every day. They've got me trained, and I'm fine with it because they keep me healthy.
Right.
And they'll keep our children healthy. They can protect they protect our families. And then we're specifically talking about dogs here, but horses have an incredible way about themselves too, but we're specifically dogs. And they remind me of what it means to live like the future matters, because they live so in the present. They are in animals in the wild, like a moose will graze only what it needs so it can come back around, and there's food to eat. A squirrel will put aside its food. An animal in our home, a domestic, has lost some of that instinct, but when I watch my dogs close enough, and they've had enough to eat, they'll bury their bones for later, when they or to have them. And sometimes it'll be weeks later, and they'll go and they'll dig up their smelly bones. I get them those big marrow bones. And allowing that instinct, like a lot of people, I don't know, some of your listeners might be living in too much control. We, like our pets and like our children, too much control kills the spirit. No, but you don't want someone saying no to you all the time, or get over here, or sit down, or stop that. It's just not a way necessary to train. If you want to have an obedient animal, you train them with love. I'm a dog whisperer, and it's just a gentle, loving, calm voice. I wish I had time, or I wish we were on screen. I could show you some of these techniques I've done to help train my animals and other people's animals in such a loving, compassionate way, as a horse whisperer does, or a dog whisperer, myself included. And same thing with our children. I mean, it's love that is the best medicine, is the best trainer. Sure, sometimes you have to lay your hand down. No, I'm not saying like smack or anything, but you have to just, I find the best thing for my dogs, man, they'll know if they roll in shit, or excuse my language, or they do something really doggy like, and they know I don't want them killing that mongoose or that rat and bringing it to me as a present. I don't yell at them. I don't scream at them. I don't say don't. I just don't give them eye contact. I shun away. I don't, it's the thing that trains them the best, is that silence, right? Like that disapproval. And so it's good for my health, because I'm not yelling and screaming and getting out of control, or getting so pissed off. It's just like, no, this is, and it's doing it. And they know, so a lot.
Well, they so know when they don't do something that's right.
Yeah.
It's like they give you this look, like, Tonka gives me this eye look of like, yeah, or pouts, like kind of like a pout. And he knows that he's not supposed to do what he did.
Yeah.
And usually I'm like, go take a time out.
Yeah,
go
time out.
time out,
Yeah.
like go time out. And some of that is, if he's done anything, really, like one day I came home, this is when he was partly like pretty much a puppy, and he chewed a wall. It wasn't even like he chewed like I'm like, you have 1,000 toys, like why a wall, and I had crate trained him, and he never, I mean, he would just go lay down in his crate. It was kind of like, but he was quite young, and all I could say is I just put him in I just kind of left him there and walked out because I needed to cool off. I was just like, I just need to cool off. I don't want to yell at him. I don't want to, I mean, I was just like, I just need to go take a few deep breaths, and then I'll come back in, because I knew that if I didn't want to lose it. And I was like, and I definitely don't want to lose it in front of him, partly because I wasn't home when he did it. And to him, he's like, well, why is she yelling at me? Because I didn't catch him in the act. So, but it was so funny. I was just like, okay, I think I need my own timeout right now, and I'm going to go and keep myself. But what we said earlier, which I really love, because Tonka definitely picks up on people, and I definitely know the people that he likes. Like I can tell you the personality. Yeah. And I know the people that he doesn't like, or it's not even that he doesn't like them. It's just, you can just tell that he's just not, like, he won't do anything. He's just not crazy about them.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting.
So interesting. And I just want to get back to the thing about chewing the wall. And this is something I don't think a lot of pet owners know, like, why would they chew a wall, or why, there's a couple things that are scientifically proven. Like there's certain things in paints or in walls, or there's something, a mineral, right, or a compound that they can't get in a rubber toy or a cloth thing made from Petco or something like that. And especially with a puppy who's, it's the right texture, and it's the only thing that's gonna calm that baby, like a pacifier. It's just the right texture, the right mineral or whatever is in that. They're trying to get to the sheetrock, whatever it is, and there probably was like a little hole there already, and you didn't know about it, and he just knew that was in there. And sometimes animals will chew because you realize, wow, there's a rat living in my house, and he's just trying to get that rat. Yeah, and I'm not here at this time of day when the rats act over in the night, or whatever critter might be living there, and they're doing their job trying to protect you. It's not like they're, and that's so brilliant of you, just for you to take the time out. But when you're taking that time out, and you're thinking of how much it's going to cost to fix, and how you're going to reprimand, and how you're going to train them not to do that, there's things to consider, like just why our kids or any of us would do something for the first time, because he loves you. He will do anything for you. He was doing something for you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But it didn't feel like it.
It didn't feel like it, but yes, they do. And it's so funny, because every now and then, like something will happen, and like he always say, I think you were saying earlier that one of your dogs sleeps with you. Yeah, Tonka always sleeps with me, and usually he's on the other end, or he's right next to me, depending on how cold it is. And this morning I stayed in bed a little longer, and all of a sudden, like he doesn't usually stand, like he usually stays in bed. I get out, and then eventually he gets out of bed when I'm all dressed and everything. He's like, okay, I'm just staying here. But this morning he like just stood up, and all of a sudden he just came over to me and started giving me kisses, and I was like, thank you. But like, it was just so sweet. And I thought to myself, I don't know, maybe I had been dreaming or something, but I thought, how interesting. Like afterwards I thought, okay, what was I feeling? What was I going through? Because they're so sensitive to what we're going through. I thought,
yeah,
they have a reason they do stuff.
Absolutely. No, that's really interesting. You could have been having a dream. You could have even been saying his name, when you're sleeping. I mean, you don't know. And they're with us 24/7, right? And they're picking up on all of our energies. And, you could have been having a nightmare, or whatever, and he was just showing you he was right there for you.
Right there for me, right there for me.
Isn't it
So,
great though? It's like even between the wall and the dream or whatever, it's just like we have to interpret our project what we're thinking on these the dogs, and we have a choice, right? We could say, "You dumb mother, you chewed up my wall and smack them on, take them to the pound," and or you can have the attitude, and unfortunately, that's what happens to a lot of animals. Let's be real. And then we can also look at it as just like, oh, wow, we have a lesson here to learn, but I'm sure there's good reason why you did this. And I literally talk to my animals like they understand English, and therefore they have a very large vocabulary. I speak to them constantly. They know what I'm saying. First of all, they know the tone of our voice.
right, absolutely.
But they have specific words that we know exactly, have full conversations, and I feel really good about that because some people will think oh, this person's crazy, they're having a full-blown conversation with their dog, but I try not to do it around other people. My husband hears me, and he does it too now, and the dogs will listen. Sometimes it's really nice, and I write about this in my book, having a one-sided conversation with somebody who unconditionally loves you, and you can just share everything, and they feel your emotions, and you're not looking for anybody to fix it or tell you. You're just looking for somebody, which is my animals, to just. Yeah, and then they lick you in the morning, and you don't even know why, but you were obviously communicating something in your dream.
That's right. But as you're saying, talking, I stopped by my brother's on a few days ago, and so I have two nephews, 10 and 13, and we're all in the backyard, and I'm talking to my brother and sister-in-law, and they had company, and at a few different points, like we just looked over, and one of my nephews or both are just sitting there on the grass, like talking to him, like having a full-blown conversation. And it's so sweet. Like they're just talking away, and he's just sitting there and listening, like every now and then he turns his head, kind of. And I always love it because I think it is this divine being that loves you no matter what. You can say whatever you want to them. There's no judgment. There's just this feeling of total acceptance.
Yeah.
And that's who they are. Yeah. And
Right.
there's nothing like that.
And it's so undervalued and underappreciated by most by a big portion of the population that treats them like, this is my dog, don't tell me how to do it. Or I've seen more animal abuse than I ever want to see. Any abuse is not acceptable. And so that's why I'm a voice for nature, and that includes dogs. And I've rescued many dogs and cats, who I all gave them all away, the cats. But you have to know, then that's a really important conversation to have right here. I mean, not everybody is a pet person, right? Not everybody is meant to have children either. And if you know that about yourself, don't go out there and get a pet and think it's going to fix everything during a pandemic, or think it's going to fix your marriage, have a kid. Either you are or you're not. And if you try it, going in with the understanding, if you decide you want to get a pet, you're either going to fall in love or you're going to find it a good home. There's only two choices.
I love
nothing in between.
I love that, because to me, like I look at myself, and I was always a pet. Like I was always an animal kid. I would go up to anything, contrary to what my mother wanted me to do. She's always saying to me, you can't go up to a strange animal without asking. But I was fearless, and I would have gone up to anything. I was that was my comfort zone. That's where I felt the best and always have. And when you said that, I mean, there are people who are just not animal people. Yeah, they're just not. And every now and then it's kind of like, I think they don't exactly know what they're missing.
Yeah.
And then they get one and they're like, oh, now I get it. And I would never be without one. Like, I've met people like that. I think that for whatever reason, whether they thought they were going, but they didn't understand that on a level that was available to them. It's kind of like saying, oh, I'd like, it's like, oh, I don't really want it, but you've never really had it. It's like, so I'd love to talk for you to talk about, because you have like multiple aspects, and I know living as if tomorrow matters, which is so important, but I know you do a lot in the food and cooking realm.
Yeah.
And in the nutrition and that kind of, for people, and I think pets.
Yeah, I do. And actually, I am a certified health coach, and I had a health coaching one-on-one practice for years. And now I'm doing more group coaching. I'm starting a membership. And one of the things in the membership, or you don't have to be a member, you can still sign up for a culinary class. But I teach culinary classes. I had a restaurant for 37 years, the first holistic restaurant in the state of Alaska. I went national with Alaska, the first organic cocoa and chocolate syrup in the nation. And so I know a lot about food and the commodities that go into making foods, and how what we eat affects all living things, including our pets. I make all my own dog food. I have a relationship with the slaughterhouse where I get liver and heart and skirt steak and ground beef and organic chicken. And I have everything that I need to make several different formulas, which I teach in culinary classes. So if any of your listeners want to come and learn how to make pet food, I use ingredients everywhere from spirulina, blue-green algae, brewer's yeast, and I'm different combinations, sweet potatoes, carrots and green beans and oatmeal and certain grains, and doing the right proportions of all of these things and having enough variety in their diets. A lot of what I feed my animals is raw, some is cooked, but most of it is raw. And I use probiotics because I make my own sauerkrauts and ferments, and I also teach that fermentation workshops. And so I put a little of the fermented products for the gut microbiome. And yeah, my animals are like, they go to the vet and they're like, you have the healthiest animals in Kohala. Well, part of that is they don't wear collars, and we run every day and swim in the ocean, and they get more love and pets than imaginable. But the food is definitely a huge component of that, and the time of day that I feed them, and also the environment that when they're feeding. You have three big dogs, and we have this one dog, and she thinks that she's going to lick everybody's plates, but she's so sweet. And anyway, but they just giving them all their space, and not feeding them when they're starving, feeding them when they're just a little bit hungry, so that they're not feeling aggressive, and so they can slow down, being calm with them, just like what I teach that with ourselves. You don't want to eat when you're starving. You want to eat when you're a little hungry, and you want, to bless your food, be relaxed, and come to it with grace and appreciation and gratitude. So we keep it very, very calm at meal times, and then and they know they're going to go for a walk afterwards, because we do it every time. Consistency is so important with you, with me, with all of us, whether it's our diets, our exercise routines, our sleep routines and patterns. Understanding our biorhythms, understanding their biorhythms. And like I say, so anyway, yeah, interconnecting and living within the systems and cycles of nature, and really appreciating our own, our what works best for ourselves, and the dynamics of our whole family, meaning my dogs and me and my husband and I. So yeah, so that's on the food. The food is such an important part of being a pet owner. There's also one component that I think that is critically important that I do, that's different from a lot of health practitioners, is I incorporate nature therapy in everything that I do, and food as medicine in everything that I do, but is making that connection from the soil to the soul. is, and that's the name of actually my company, is Soul to Soul SOULution, SOUL, Soul to Soul Solutions. Doing everything from solving a problem with a soulful approach, a long-term resolution, instead of solving a problem. You got a problem, I have a solution. I want to keep my pet quiet, so I'm going to muzzle him and chain him. That's not a solution. For the moment, your pet's quiet and miserable and learning really bad human relation and pet relation. A solution is to sit with that animal and smell their ears and breathe in and be calm and tell them you love them and to pet them and be calm. And the solution is, this is how we talk to the pet. This is how we behave when we're here. And here's a treat. And I want you to be quiet and respectful and learn these words, learn them. And, the whole time I'm training my animals is for a long-term benefit. So they learn that maybe once or twice that has to happen. Never a muzzle, never a chain, never, it's just like spend the time. Like when we do that with our children, we spend the time and we teach them right at the beginning. And I understand some pet owners initially might have a very, very disturbed animal they got from the pound, or, there are situations where you have to take maybe a little bit more extreme measure of doing that, because for their own safety and for those around. But when you're doing it because you have a control issue as a pet owner, you're a control freak. Ooh, those kinds of people are ruining the world, as far as I'm concerned. And you can see, though, that person, the way they're treating an animal or a child or somebody else is a control issue, rather than the new paradigm. We're in the age of Aquarius, love and compassion and understanding and communication. And
I think that love and compassion, I mean, one of the things you talked about was like routine. And I mean, there are ways of communication and ways to act, and so there is discipline. It's just not, there's just a fine line. Like there's this, I mean, Tonka's really well behaved, and people always comment that he's really well behaved.
Yeah.
But that's also because he knows that this is my home and this is the way, there's a proper way. Like, he's not a furniture pet, that's the way.
But he sleeps on your bed.
But that's the only piece. Like and then if I invite him up to the sofa, he'll get on. But if I'm not, like, if I don't tell him he can get on, he won't get on. Like he leaves it. But that tone, that sort of the very calming kind of, and the fact that I think that routine is really important. I think they need a routine. Routines are safe. They're secure. There's like a rhythm. There's to it, and they understand that rhythm and they get used to it. And they're smart. I mean, animals are so smart.
So smart.
That they respond to that. It's usually, I was called in once to a home. They asked me to come in and help them with their dog. And when I told me this dog was out of control, like in the middle of the table, and like, and I'm sitting there, whatever. And dog had absolutely no training. Used to, when they left it at home alone, which they used to do when they it would bark constantly. And I thought to myself, this dog has no routine, no rhythm. It feels kind of lost, like it doesn't know it doesn't know which end is up, kind of thing. And so I really think that routine and that kind of rhythm is really important.
So what did you do to calm that dog down?
Oh gosh, I gave them some suggestions, which they weren't open to, because basically they didn't want to do the work that was required. And I just said, I'd love to help you, but you have to, like you said, it's time, it is commitment, it's love, and you have to be, and you have to be willing to put that in.
I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and if you do, you'll be like, that animal will change and your relationship will be even stronger
Yeah.
than it ever was. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Donna. Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, especially to people who are considering getting a pet, the really, really important thing to do is to study the breed, because
Mm-hmm.
there are yappers and there are ones that won't bark even if to protect you, right? There are some that shed terribly, and if you have allergies, they'll annoy you in more ways than one. You want to get a pet that has hair, that doesn't bark, maybe. Or if you live on a farm, you want to get an Australian Shepherd, one that's going to help herd and work, because they need to work. You don't want to have an Australian Shepherd in an apartment, or a Siberian Husky, in an apartment. No, those dogs need to be in the cool weather, and they need to be they're bred to work. A Louisiana swamp dog, like my Catahoula, he's a duck hunter and he's a hunter. And so I take him hunting every day for mongoose or rats that are invasive. And does he get one? Yeah, he gets maybe 6 a year, and they're overpopulated. And so he's doing, the mongooses are killing all the bird eggs. So, of the local birds. So I don't feel bad about it, right? Any of my dogs doing that. And that's what they're trained to, that's what they're bred. Like, some of us are bred, we have African American blood, and we're tall and we can play basketball. And some of us, like me, is a chubby Jew, is 5'2", and don't put a basketball on my hand, right? I'm not going to get the hoops. So, meaning not, you're not necessarily bred, but you're born a certain into a certain way. Sure, I can play basketball, but I'm not going to be on that team, and it's not something I have to do, right?
Right. I
So
find that, what I always say is, like, Tonka's part border collie and he's really smart. So the
yeah,
thing is that I need to keep him, he needs to exercise a lot,
yeah,
and he needs long walks and good runs.
yeah,
And then he, and then like toys or whatever else I can do to keep him, because I don't live on a farm. And I think you have to be prepared, because I guarantee you, and I've learned this the hard way, that if I don't give him if he's not tired and he hasn't done stuff, he's going to find himself a job. And
yeah.
usually it's not something you want them to find.
That's
Like, usually that's when they get into trouble, because they're bright and they're bored and they're going to
yeah,
look for something to do. And usually it's not something you want them to do. Like, that's just a given. And so I think investigating the breed is really important. Like, I had a friend, I knew someone who got a dog. This dog was so hyper, and she would exercise it, but it was like she should have looked, because she probably could have used a calmer dog. And then I had a friend who was a real exercise person, was a real runner, and then ended up getting a dog that was a couch potato. And so for
yeah,
somebody like that, getting a dog that loves to run or loves to be outside would have been the perfect companion. And sometimes, there are certain dogs I love, but I know that we would not be a good match.
yeah,
And I think you have to look into that, especially if you're getting like a purebred dog. I mean, if you're getting something from a kennel, or you're adopting a dog and it's most likely a mixed breed, like Tonka's a mix of like 4, then, you're getting you're getting aspects of that breed, but it's kind of
right.
like, know what you're getting.
Absolutely. And the other thing too, I love that we're having this conversation, because I think it's so important, is also the age of the animal, right? There's so many older dogs that, I have a friend, she adopts, senior dogs. She calls herself, um, what is it? What does she call it? She's the elder hostel, uh, of the dogs. She's an elder hostel. She makes it fun, and she gives them a quality of life and then she hospices them. So she only gets the dogs when they're in the elder hostel stage, meaning when they're still functioning, and they can still, you can still do things with them, fun and exciting things. But she doesn't want that. She's older herself. She's in the elder hostel stage of her life. And then she might only have some of these dogs for 6 months to a year. And she has learned to grieve with these animals and to let them go. She believes in the afterlife and the spirit world. And just the fact that there's people out there in at the end of life for these pets that sometimes will end up in a pound, right?
Yeah. I think my podcast this week was with a friend of mine, actually, Jeffrey Evans, who runs an in-home animal hospice. So he takes not only senior dogs or older dogs, he takes differentially abled. So he has a lot of bipods, tripods, and he and his husband, home care, I think now they have 13 dogs. That, I mean, always in awe of him. Like, I'm just like, he's like one of my idols. I'm just like, and they take most of the animals nobody wants, and they give them the best life they could possibly have for the time they have left.
That's so beautiful.
And that's like your friend, who I honor her too. It's
right. Absolutely.
There's something to be said for, they are these sacred creatures, and they deserve to be treated as such.
Absolutely. And thankfully, there are people out there who feel like you and I do, and anybody who's listening to this who is a pet owner, and who, I don't even want to use owner. It is so funny. You get that gets bred in you.
I know.
When this pet, we don't own them, that we have the privilege to care for them so that they can care for us, because it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's a beautiful thing. And anybody who has a pet like you and I, who understands this and feels this and can teach this and spread the love, and it's so amazing. In my heart just is so sad when I think about what's happening globally with wars and fires, and not just our domestic pets, but all the animals that are at the mercy of the human condition, forest fires and
absolutely
deforestation, and all these animals that in the wild, especially, they depend on these basic needs. And I just see, when I take my animals that bring me out into nature every day, into these beautiful habitats, and I get to, the mongoose, they hunt the mongoose, but seeing the birds and the whales and the dolphins in the sea, and the sea turtles, and these incredible birds, and just being able to witness all the animals and learn so much from all of them, and how they're so dependent on us, on our choices, what we do every day in our homes, in nature, when we're walking down a city block. Everything is interconnected, and all these animals are connected. And when we destroy their homes, or we improve their ecosystem, it makes a huge difference one way or the other. And so standing up for nature, and for all the sentient beings, that's one thing that another lesson that I learned from my domestic animals, is what the wild animals need to survive. And they don't have, grocery stores and homes and beds to sleep on, and people to pet them, right? They're really on their own out there. And these animals, although they're not my animals, they're my domestic partners. And I just am so grateful for the animal kingdom, and never forgetting for a moment that I too am an animal.
And that is a great way to end, because I think that none of us should ever forget that it's a privilege to live on this earth. Like, we're lucky, and that we get to embrace, hopefully, that beauty and that awe and those lessons.
Yes.
That we're blessed to see, that and to be aware of them, like, teaching and sharing with us. And I love I think, like we said, we can learn so much from animals, and the way they interact with each other, and the way they treat their own, the way they take care of themselves and their and their other animals. I've always had them. Now I don't, but I've always had a multi-pet household. Oh, bless you.
It wasn't my dogs. It wasn't Alex.
um,
Just thinking about anybody too who lives near a zoo or goes to a zoo, and I have stepped in and intervened many times if I have seen animal discrimination in a bad situation. Call the Humane Society, call the police, be a whistleblower. You'd want someone to do it for you. And it's so important, and so many profound things have happened. I mean, when I was a little girl, one of my first memories, I know we're going over there, but I was in Central Park and I was at the zoo, and there was this monkey there just holding onto the cage and a tiger pacing back and forth, and I just sat there and held onto the bars and cried unconditionally, so much that I almost threw up. And then I went on a rampage and I made some inroads, as a kid, like, you can't do this, and we can't do this to our pets, maybe even down the street, who's been chained for their whole lives and walks in circles and going crazy. I mean, we can be advocates, right? And I have been an advocate, and I encourage everyone to be an advocate, because we are their voices. We can't, and if we see that kind of humiliation and discrimination and cruelty happening, it's happening in the house too. And so it's all of our responsibility to take care of each other, and especially every single day. And speaking of taking care of everybody, I gotta go to feed my dogs, but I want to invite everybody. I have a beautiful farmstead retreat here on the Big Island. I have a vacation rental, and anybody who comes to visit, I'll give you what they call Kaima Einarade, who's listening to the show. You'll get to meet Chester and Simba and Sadie and Lucky and Buddha. So, and I'll take you on a nature therapy hike and on the cliffs, and we'll go romping around. And it would be just an honor to have your pet loving audience to meet any one of you who makes it to the Big Island of Hawaii.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Donna, for being with us. And I look forward to chatting with you real soon. And I'm sure all the listeners are going to love it.
I hope so. And I love you, listeners. And hey, last thing, Jan is going to be on my show, A Dose of Positivity, next month. I think it's January 22nd. So you'll be sure to let them know, because we'll be continuing this conversation and getting deeper into our love of life and our four-legged friends and all things positive. So I want to thank you so much for your time and inviting me on your show, honey. This was a privilege and an honor.
Oh, it was an honor to me too. Thanks so much.
Aloha.
You've been listening to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode at exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.